When it comes to labor and delivery, every birth story is unique. While you can have a detailed plan, much of the process is outside your immediate control. So, what does it really look like to prepare for birth? What should new moms know? And what are some of the decisions that should be considered beforehand? Welcome to A Healthy Dose. I'm Julie Stautland, and joining me today is Justine Schilstra, a registered midwife with a Bachelor of Science in Midwifery from McMaster University. She has attended over 350 births, and she's here to guide us through the second part of our three-part series on what to expect, this time focusing on labor and delivery. Okay, here we go, talking about birth plans, Justine. Let's start with, what are the questions we should be asking? I mean, what are some of the things that parents should be considering when they're like, okay, this birth is going to come up? What do we need to think about?
So I think if you have a midwife, you're going to first picture, would I like to have my baby at home or in the hospital?
Okay.
If you have an OB, you're planning a hospital birth. And from there, what are my expectations on how I want to manage my pain? What is it going to look like to me in terms of immediate skin to skin, timing of clamping the cord? What will I say if antibiotics are recommended to me? So asking those types of things, knowing kind of how do I handle pain, especially, that's a big one that comes up for people.
Is there something that they should really think about if they're going to have a home birth compared to going into the hospital that they should consider?
So I would say if you've decided on a home birth, just making that plan with your midwife about supplies that you should have, picturing where you are going to have your baby, having a spot for us to set up equipment, a few of those things. But we walk you through those things.
Yeah. And that's the great part of having a midwife, is that you actually really, you do this all the time. You know what to do, and the education is there.
Yeah.
And they can think about it, prepare for it months ahead. So, okay. So how does remaining flexible? We talked about this before, and I think it's really important for people to get this because, you know, babies have their own way of doing things. Your bodies have their own way of doing things. And no matter what you think, you need to be flexible, right? How do you remain flexible through this factor?
Yeah. I think that's work that you do in pregnancy, to be honest. It's not something that's going to magically appear in time of labor. No, it's not. So it's just being realistic about the different scenarios that could occur, realizing like what are the things that are kind of my non-negotiables that I can advocate for, and where do I need to be flexible. So just being real about that with yourself. And I find that if we're not flexible, we're more likely to have a feeling of failure and trauma associated with that.
That's a really good point, because there's no need for that if you are more flexible. You are a participant in this, but not to be so hard on yourself.
Exactly, because then you can think, I didn't achieve my birth plan, and therefore I failed.
Right.
And I really don't want women to carry that out of their labor.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, walk us through the main stages of labor and what typically happens at each stage.
Sure. So we divide labor into 3 stages.
Okay.
So the first stage is dilation of the cervix to 10 centimeters. And we would divide that into early and active labor.
Okay.
Early labor you would do without a care provider present outside the hospital. It's typically to about 4 to 5 centimeters. So early contractions are more mild, a little bit shorter, further apart in how we characterize them.
And I think, especially for a first-time mom, I think it's important for them to know, I know for me, that when it was explained to me, that it really does feel like period cramps.
Yep. So starting with cramps, leading into mild contractions and more moderate contractions. So that's early labor versus active labor when we're having very frequent contractions, so closer than 5 minutes apart. They're lasting 45 to 60 seconds or so, and you would characterize them as moderate to strong. So that brings us to the end of the first stage where you dilate to fully dilated.
Okay.
So the fully dilated is stage 2, where we push out a baby.
Okay.
And then we have the third stage where we deliver the placenta.
Okay, and let's talk about that. We've got 30 seconds here, like delivering the placenta. That is important. After the baby's in, they're like, oh, I've done it. I'm like, no, you're not done.
Yeah. So we ideally want that placenta to come out within about 15 minutes.
Okay.
We can give it up to 30 before we start to get a bit antsy, just because we know that our risk of hemorrhage goes up the longer a placenta's inside.
Okay, well, that's good information to know.
Yep.
All right. So, coming up, we'll talk about pain relief, interventions, and what happens when labor takes an unexpected turn. We'll be right back after this.